Want to know the difference between 15 thou and 150 thou? About 25 bucks.
A safe space for makers.
Welcome back to Last Bastion Labs, your safe space for makers. I'm Tim, and this week we are continuing our work on the 1911 mainspring housing. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to thank all of you who have subscribed to the channel. It means a lot to me that you tune in to see what new and exciting things we're working on in the lab. At the time of this recording, we broke 130 subscribers, and that's a huge deal because it seemed like for a year I had just my mom and a couple of her friends. I do want to take a moment to come clean. I am not a machinist, nor am I a gunsmith. I'm just a dude whittling parts in his basement, but it's not my mom's basement. What have you guys signed on for? Well, I just like making things. Sometimes they're gun parts, sometimes they're Jeep parts. Sometimes they're boat parts or model airplane parts or a tool for the shop. So you've signed on for several different projects and a lot of really bad jokes. But again, thank you very much for subscribing. I do sincerely appreciate it. So let's get started. When we last left our heroes, they just completed the mainspring housing in aluminum. In this episode, our master diabolical plan, or MDP, is as follows. 1. Machine a mainspring housing out of steel. 2. Construct a fixture for fabricating the lanyard loops. And 3. Machine a set of soft jaws in order to drill a set of holes for the lanyard loop. So let's head on over to the Tormach 440 and make some chips. If you happen to watch the last video, you will notice that there's not much difference in the tool paths between aluminum and 4140 steel. The only significant change is that the cutting tools are specifically designed for steel and thus run at slightly different feeds and speeds. I started this project by heading on over to Provencut. I searched for a 1/4-inch end mill cutter, 4140 steel, using an adaptive toolpath. I reviewed the search results, followed the links, and ordered the cutters, and downloaded the recipes directly into my Fusion 360 tool library. It was that simple. I also used Provencut to update my drill recipes, and now in Fusion, where we can set preferences between steel and aluminum, this allows me to use the same drill bits in different materials, and wow, was that very nice. This is a 4-flute 1/4-inch end mill cutter running at 7,500 RPM at 54 inches per minute with a width of cut of 0.015. The opening crash in this video was a width of cut of 0.15. Again, that was totally on me. I guess at this point I should point out that I am not sponsored by anyone. I just have been very happy with Tormach, their support group, Fusion 360, and Provencut. Now it's time for the click spring part dismount. If you watched my last video, you may recall that watching me drill this 280 thousandths hole was similar to watching a monkey hump a football. This time I'm using a trick from Joe Pye at Tactical Innovations. I'm going to bore a pilot hole into the part using a 1/4-inch end mill. This little trick made it easy peasy, as Joe would say. Thank you very much. As stated before, I am not a machinist. I'm kind of like a 16-year-old in the back seat of the family car. It's all about the material removal process. So if you're interested in learning the correct way to do this, I highly recommend Joe's channel. He's trying to break 100,000 subscribers by Christmas, and if we can help him out, I would greatly appreciate it. Now it's time for some 3D contouring with a 1/4 inch ball end mill cutter. Yes, sir, that is 100% made in America machine porn. Now it's time to cut the checkering. I'm using an 1/8 inch 60-degree chamfer tool from Lakeshore Carbide at 10K RPM at 15 inches per minute. So I'm not entirely unpleased with how this turned out. Okay, I'm really pleased how it turned out. And the form and fit in the gun was outstanding. Moving on to the loop lanyard fixture. When I read this recipe on Provencut, I thought to myself, well, this should be interesting. And when I say interesting, I'm using it the way my wife uses it. Interesting. The recipe called for 3/4 of an inch depth of cut at 10 thou width of cut. But as you can see, Provencut hit it out of the park. I mean, look at those chips fly. I know those of you at home who don't own a mill are not very impressed with chips. But trust me, machine chips are an acquired taste. Now for a quick chamfer, because chamfers are cool. Now I need to spot and drill a hole through the entire part. So this is when I would normally say, that didn't capture my design intent at all. However, the hole is in the part, it was just less than optimal. Now we'll take off the top cap and bring the part to its final size. I'm not sure how well this will show up on camera, but I cut a relief into the side of the fixture to allow for the spring back in the material. A normal person would have consulted a stress strain curve for 01 tool steel to calculate how much relief would be required to go past the elastic region. In my case, I guessed. Please don't judge me. Not bad, but not perfect either. When I cut the relief into the fixture, I didn't take any material out of the radius. I'm going to see if I can cheat death and try some heat. My master diabolical plan is to heat up the 01 tool rod, grab onto it with some vice grips, and see if I can draw it around that radius into the flat, and then smush it in the vise. Now it's time for the YouTube hardness test. My material science professor just rolled over in his grave. Now on to what I hope is the final fixture for this project. If you've been keeping track, that's 4 fixtures and 8 total setups. While I have this set up, I decided it was time for some Naval Aircrew bling. Well, I'm not entirely unpleased with that at all. Again, I did some playing around. So this is the deliverable to the family friend who inspired me to do this project. The goal was to make a 1911 mainspring housing out of steel with a lanyard loop and diamond checkering. In another video, I will show how I attach the lanyard loop and cover my first attempts at parkerizing parts in the privacy of my own home. I'm sure that you noticed that I made more than one blank. I wanted to experiment with different grip patterns and bling designs. I wasn't really sure what to call this one. I asked for suggestions on my social media platforms, and that's how we wound up with Ribbed for Her Pleasure. And this one's for me, a Navy Aircrew 1911 mainspring housing. This one turned out the best. I made this one for my cousin. The family farm was settled in 1844, and I took a picture of the windmill on the farm and converted it to an SVG file. If you've been following the channel, you know I had to go there. TADFA, for Timmy Austin Doesn't Fart Around. So that's about it for this episode. Next on the docket, 1911 grips with Aircrew bling. I hope you will consider following Last Bastion Labs on Facebook and Instagram. It will allow you to have a sneak peek on what types of things we're working on here in the lab. Last but not least, I would like to thank you very much for your time. If you enjoyed what you saw, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. This is Tim Austin from Last Bastion Labs, your safe space for makers.